What was Nelson Mandela on Robben Island for? What was he in prison for?
Well,
for being black, or was there another reason?
Well, literally. So I have children, and they are taught in schools, and the government prescribes what children should learn in history. And so the official version is he went to prison because he was a good leader, and the government didn't like that. I should say that he certainly was the best that the ANC has ever had to offer.
Yes.
But the reason why he went to prison is because they started Umkhonto we Sizwe, which was the military wing of the ANC, which became involved with military actions in South Africa with an attempt to overthrow the government. And they actually, and this is I'm quoting from the ANC's own policy documents that's on their own website. So they had this operation when they started, which was used in the Rivonia trial against Nelson Mandela. It was a strategy called Operation Mayibuye, and the slogan of this operation was "Shamelessly we shall attack the weak, and shamelessly we shall flee from the strong." So those were the circumstances in the 1960s.
Pretty noble policy statement there. We'll attack the weak and flee from the strong.
Yeah, and it's still on their website. You can find it there. So that was an attempt at an armed uprising. Now we can talk about everything that was wrong with the previous political system in South Africa, and there was a lot wrong. But it's simply not the case that he went to prison for being a good leader.
Well, I think that most people would acknowledge a distinction between military action, which is, a fight, a war, a battle between militaries, and attacks on civilians, which is something we call terrorism.
Yes. So in 1985, the ANC had a conference in Kabwe in Zambia, and they took a formal decision that in their so-called military operations, they would not differentiate between hard and soft targets. So it was officially a policy that says we can kill innocent people. And a lot of innocent people died in the political violence in the run-up to 1994, and 90% of the people who died were black South Africans.
Right.
It was...
but non-combatants, women, children.
Yeah, women and children.
Passers-by, people had nothing to do with anything.
Yes, especially.
And so during that time that Mandela was in prison, I'm 55, so I remember this very, very well, his wife was effectively his spokesman, Winnie Mandela.
Yeah.
And she was lionized in the United States. She was a hero. She was the mother of an emerging nation, a woman of peace and decency, really a transcendent figure, a holy figure. And then it turned out that actually she was a murderer who had, burned to death or supervised the murder of a bunch of different people. Tell us about that.
Yes. So let me firstly say that I have a lot of respect for Nelson Mandela. I think in terms of his efforts and as I say, I think he's the best the ANC has ever had to offer. Winnie Mandela, his wife, not so much. So she's been involved with a lot of things, including what was called the Mandela Football Club.
Yes.
Which was a gang that was involved with violence and killings of innocent people. And she famously said at a political rally, with our necklaces and our matches, we will liberate this country.
Yes.
Which, of course, is a reference to the necklace murders, which was very popular in South Africa and still happens in South Africa. That's when you take a rubber tire, you fill it with petrol or gasoline, and you put it around someone's neck so that it's bound around their arms, and you set it on fire. And then you stone that person while he's burning to death. And that happened. There were, I think, 500 or 700 people were killed like that during political violence in South Africa. And she encouraged this. Initially, she denied it, and then it came out that it was recorded of her saying this. So yes, it's very bizarre that someone like Winnie Mandela is a hero today.
And was a hero then. And so that, to me, was a sign that these are not, liberators, that they're oppressors.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but no one in the West wanted to think that. It was like a really simple tale of white oppression of noble black people. And by definition, the black people, there were oppressed black people, of course. And there were noble black people, but the leadership always struck me as evil.
Yes. So there were some better and some worse people in the leadership. I think an important component here that is very well documented, it's not a secret, but a lot of people don't seem to want to know this or recognize this, is the very strong alliance that the ANC has always had and still has with the South African Communist Party, and the extent to which they were supported not just by the Soviet Union, also by the Vietnamese and by Mao Zedong as well, implementing what they call the People's War strategy that they got from Mao Zedong. So yes, it was very much the ANC saw themselves as being the African or South African frontier of promoting a socialist or a communist revolution.
If you've been paying attention, you know that ALP is not just another nicotine pouch. It is literally the best nicotine pouch in the world. And we know because we use it all day long. We've used all of them. Turns out you can actually make money by telling people about ALP. We're launching our affiliate program. If you have an audience, big or small, you can cash in. You earn 10% commission on every sale of ALP that you bring in. And to make it even easier, we'll give you a 10% off link for your followers. They save, you earn. It's really simple. By the way, compared to all the other products people sell online, ALP is truly good. It's delicious. It is easy to sell because it's heartfelt. So spread the word, get rewarded for it. Best nicotine pouch in the world. So how did it turn out?
Well, if you mean in terms of where we are today.
Let's just follow different threads. So let's just start with, I don't know, technology and infrastructure. What did in 1993, South Africa was famously the most prosperous society in Africa by far, right? And among the most prosperous in the world, correct? They had nuclear weapons in South Africa.
Yes.
Yeah. What is it like now, 30 years later?
Well, the reality is that virtually every sphere of society is collapsing, with the exception of taxation, of course, and tax collection. That's still very, very efficient. Maybe I can explain it this way. So America has a somewhat skewed tax system with, if my information is correct, about 85% of income tax in America is paid by about 10% of the people.
I think that's correct.
So 1 in 10. In South Africa, 85% of income tax is paid by 1 in 30 people. So it's a very small number of people, a very small portion of society that pays tax, that is heavily taxed. And then about almost half of the population in South Africa get money from the government in the form of social grants. If you add government employees, conservative estimates say that 50% of people in South Africa get money from the government. Some estimates say it's up to 60% of adults, voting age adults, get money from the government each year. So then this money, of course, is then used. It's given out as social grants, but what's left is used to set up these programs that are actively discriminating against taxpayers. There are so many examples. One of the most recent ones is this Blacks Only Fund that the government has set up, whereby they give money to black entrepreneurs exclusively. So this is happening, and then on top of that, so after you spend your tax money to fund these government programs that are discriminating against you, you have to spend what is left to do the things that the government was supposed to be doing. So the classical definition of a government is that it should protect life, liberty, and property. The classical liberal view, we're a bit Ciceronian, so we think a government has to do more than that. But if we use those three things, the government's not protecting our lives. There's about... if this interview that we're about to have is 2 hours, there will be about 7 murders in South Africa in this time. Government does not protect liberty. It's actively targeting schools of minority communities, actively denying the identity and the rights of minority communities. And it's certainly not protecting property. It's actively involved with the program to empower the government to expropriate private property without compensation. And then we have to use the money that is left to pay for our own private security, to become involved with organizations, to fulfill the things that the government was supposed to be doing with the tax money that we paid in the first place.
One of the reasons that I find this story so fascinating is not simply because, it's like the classical, irony of history. This, group comes in with one aim and then achieves exactly the opposite. We're going to have we're going to end racism and then make racism much worse. But also because they have gone about it in a way that's almost like American, with the same language, the same diversity
absolutely.
Is our strength kind of sloganeering, and it's had the same result, which is to basically kill whites. And I mean, that's just true. And I wonder if you see that. It's almost like you imported our kind of intellectual class framework for this project.
No, that's absolutely the case. So there's a theory. There was this video that just went viral on social media of this guy talking about how white people are subhuman and all of that. And they get, well, this is taught at universities in South Africa. There's a theory called Azania critical theory. Azania is a Pan-African word for South Africa. And they actually get this from Americans like Robin DiAngelo, who's this Ibrahim X. Kendi, Ta-Nehisi Coates, these people. They get it from them, and then they put an African flavor on it, which essentially boils down to a theory that justifies the targeting and extermination of the white minority. And so the theory, to summarize, goes more or less like this. There's an African term called Ubuntu, which means brotherliness, or it's about your internal humanity. It's a Zulu term. And the theory goes that white people are incapable of having Ubuntu. But Ubuntu is the essence of humanity. So if you don't have it, you're not truly human. So it boils down, the logical conclusion is that if you kill a white person, then you did not actually commit murder. So this is not widely believed in South Africa, but this is taught at universities by university professors, and it's certainly believed by radical elements.
It's a predicate for genocide. I mean, it's always the same in we're watching in parts of the world now. They're not fully human, right? So we can kill them because they're fully human. Then it's of course a grave sin to kill them.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.